I would think, one of the goals, if I was to say of what a parish priest is all about, is to try to help his people get to heaven. That's the main goal. To try to help his people get to heaven. And I realize one of the ways, obviously, celebrating the sacraments, but one of the things that I try to do, as I mentioned before a couple of weeks ago, is I enjoy meeting with parishioners, talking with them at different places. This past Sunday after Mass in Swords Upon, I spent some time with the junior high youth ministry, answering their questions. A few weeks earlier than that, on the Saturdays, for 3 Saturdays in a row, I was with a bunch of second graders and their parents at the Faith Formation Center in Fort Kent. Because it's the second graders who are preparing to celebrate 3 sacraments this year: confession, confirmation, and First Communion. And so I was meeting with the second graders and their parents, and they had a little workshop on confession and what it's all about, and how to go to confession as they're preparing to make their first confession. And then towards the end of the session, I come in, and during the session, the kids get to write in pieces of paper a bunch of questions. Of course, you never know what kids are going to write or say. They say the darndest things sometimes. And so, as I walked in, they handed me the stack of questions, so I get no preview to get my thoughts ready. But anyways, they wrote some great questions, and I thought I would share them with you. Because even though they're from kids, they're actually very intelligent questions. And I think they're also questions that sometimes adults have. So they always say we can learn from children. So anyways, they had their little workshop about confession, and I get my first question, and I need glasses soon, but anyways. And so they're talking about confession, and it says, how long will it take? And I told them, I said, it depends how bad you have been, But I assured them it doesn't matter how long or how short, because Father is there to listen to them. As I said, to try to help people get to heaven. Try to encourage them to take the high road. And so I assured them, I said, no matter how long it takes, Father will listen, and when you're done talking, then he'll probably say a few things. So I said, don't worry about the time. You can take as long as you want. Then this one said, I think it's a girl's writing, said, will you tell my mother anything? And so I assured them, I said, Father will not tell your mother or your father anything. In fact, I told them, I said, Father cannot say anything about what he hears in confession. I said, it's so important, it's a secret. It's so important that I went on to explain to them, I said, in the church, there are 6 things people get excommunicated for, kicked out of church. And I said, one of them is that Father tells people what he heard in confession. If I say, so-and-so did this, Father's automatically excommunicated, kicked out of church. Go straight to hell, don't pass go. And so I said, that's how important confession is. So I showed them, I said, I will not tell your mother anything. And so it's important, the secrecy of confession. It's so important. And I said, it's even so important, even if I hear something, and if you come to confession face to face, even though Father sees you, hears something, when he sees you or meets you again in the street or IGA or whatever, he cannot act any differently. That's how secret it is. Father can't even act as if he knows something. So I told the little munchkins, I said, don't worry, Father won't tell anybody. Then they started getting harder. This person asked, how often do we need to go to confession? It's a good question. And so as I was thinking, as I was trying to answer that, I asked one of the little, they were sitting close to me, I could see their name tags. I said, when you go for breakfast, I said, what do you like to drink? And they said, milk. I said, "Good." And I said, when your mother or father gives you a glass of milk in the morning, I said, do you get a clean glass or a dirty glass? And the little munchkin said, I have nice parents, I get a clean glass. And I said, would you want to drink out of a dirty glass? I said, no. So I said, that's like our soul. It's like a glass. as our body as made with our soul. And I said, sometimes there are things that we do, called sins, that stain the glass. It's like fingerprints on it. Or it's like milk that's been left in there. It sort of dries and caked on. And I said, the only way to clean that, to get rid of it, is to go to confession. I said, you leave all your sins, you leave all the dirty things, everything there, and you walk out new. All clean. And I asked them again, I said, would you like to drink out of a dirty glass or a clean? And they all said clean. So how often do we need to go to confession? As often as anybody wants. As often as anybody wants. And I'm telling you all, as you know, I've said before, every time we receive a sacrament, we receive what we call sacramental grace. That's that supernatural grace that God gives us in the sacraments so we can choose the high road. So we can choose the right way. So we can get to heaven. The last question, these kids were like budding theologians. They were very good. That question was this. These are second graders. Why do I need to go to confession to a priest? That's a good question. And I'll answer the question the same way I answered it to them. I reached down into my pants here, and I pulled something out. This is what I pulled out. And my keys to my car. And so then I started asking a question. I said, why do you need to go to confession to a priest? And they're looking at these keys. What are you talking about? And I said, if your house is locked, how do you get in? As you don't break through the window. They came up all kinds of things like that. But I said, no, normally how do you get in? And they said, with keys. And I said, say your car is locked. How are you going to get in? What do you need? And they said, keys. And I said, that's the same thing, because that's why we need to go to confession to a priest. Because Jesus himself said to Peter and to all his successors, said to Peter, I give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forgive on earth will be forgiven in heaven. Whatever you hold bound on earth will be bound in heaven. That's what Jesus himself said. He gave the keys to Peter, to his successor. Peter was the first pope, and all those that have come in line after him, and those who are connected through the ministry of the church, the priests and the bishops. He gave it to Peter. So I said, why do you need to go to confession to the priest? Because that is what Jesus said. And for almost 2,000 years, since the time of the apostles, that's what Catholics have done. That's what they've done. They've gone to confession to the priests. Because Jesus said, I give you the keys to heaven. What you forgive on earth is forgiven. And what you hold bound is held bound in heaven. Second graders. They're pretty profound in some of their questions. And sometimes we can learn things from second graders. And the reason I share that with you today is actually after Mass there are some second graders here who will go to confession for the first time. But also this coming week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, at the church in Fort Cannon, I will be hearing confessions from 6 to 8 every night. Actually, I'll stay later, 6 to 10, 6 to 11, as long as there's people there. Every night, 5 days this week, there'll be the opportunity to go to confession. If the glass of our soul is stained, we can get rid of everything. What a great way to prepare to celebrate the great feast of Christmas. And so we invite you to think about it. Think about what questions that second graders ask. Sometimes kids, people that are teachers, say the students teach them. Sometimes the kids who ask them questions can teach us adults. So all this week I'll be hearing confessions. And don't worry, I won't tell your mothers anything.